If I were to say to you tomorrow, you have a test, I'm sure you'd experience a lot of different feelings. Maybe nervousness, maybe fear, maybe you were excited. These are all the feelings that my 6-year-old son explained to me when he told me that he had a test the next day. And it's something that really got me thinking and something I wanted to share with you. So, my son, 6 years old, he had his very first test ever the other day in math. He came home and said, I have a test tomorrow. My wife and I said, oh, okay, great. And one thing that he kept saying is, I'm really nervous. I'm really scared. I don't want to fail. And it got me thinking in a couple of ways. First of all, my wife and I have never spoken to him about a test or even really what one is. Secondly, we never even told him what failure would be or even talked about failure in the first place. But yet at 6 years old, he was already concerned about quote-unquote failing, whatever that might be. And it got me thinking about how we talk to children, how we talk to ourselves, and how we teach when it comes to things that come up in our lives, whether they're tests, whether they're situations where we either have to prove ourselves or demonstrate our knowledge or just do something. And I felt that it was a really important time for me to think and how I was going to talk to him about it so that I made sure, at least from my perspective, in terms of parenting, that his relationship with whatever an obstacle is, whether it's a test or something that's coming up in work now or 20, 30, 40 years down the road for him, that the foundation is something of growth opposed to fear. And it's something I thought about a lot. More oftentimes than not, we have a tendency to put such an importance on tests. What's the grade? What did you get? What percentage? Instead of thinking about it in terms of the long term. And how is either your child or yourself approaching the subject, the thing, the work, whatever it is? Are you making improvement? Is it just that one day that you did great or you did terrible? Or is there something larger at play? And for instance, this was a math test. My son really likes math. He actually really enjoys it. We do little math quizzes sometimes when we're driving. He just asked me to give him random numbers to either add or subtract, and he really enjoys it. And the last thing that I wanted to do was, one, put any pressure on him because I didn't want him to not love math anymore, and two, I didn't want him to feel external pressure from me because he was already talking about failure. He was already talking about the pressure he was putting on himself. And the one thing that I knew as a parent, and I'm sure that anybody else who's a parent would know, putting more pressure on your child when they're already putting pressure on themselves is not a good solution. In fact, that's a terrible solution. As a parent, it's your job to try and put things into perspective and to help them when they are feeling that stress and learning how to deal with the stress in an effective manner. And one of the things that I kept saying to him is, I know you're working hard. We practiced, we did all the practice problems, you did your homework, you're doing it really well. No matter what the outcome is, I know you put the work in and you know you put the work in. So whatever the outcome is, we'll deal with it. If it doesn't go your way, guess what? We recalibrate, we move forward. If it does go your way, great. We keep going on the path that we're going. And I kind of was trying to make it, to him at least, that tests are nothing more than road signs. They're telling you the direction that you're going in. Not that you're doing well, not that you're doing poorly, not that you're moving too fast, not that you're moving too slow. It's just simply the direction. It's a tool. Nothing more than that. If I see that he's doing his work, he's trying his hardest, who am I then to put more pressure on him when I already know that he's doing his work, that he's taking the time, he's sitting there, he's trying to come up with math, and then he's doing it on his own, asking about math problems. So often you see parents that put so much external pressure on their children, and it's something that you see a lot usually in sports. One of the parents will try to live vicariously through the child, or maybe they didn't do well in school, so they'll push their kid really, 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 really hard when it comes to academics. And I'm not saying that academics is not important. It's very important. But is it academics to learn the subject, or is it academics to get a good grade on the test? They sometimes are not exactly the same thing, and they can be separate. If you understand a subject really well, for instance, you could teach it to somebody else, but yet you can't do very well on the test. Does that mean you don't know the subject? Or vice versa? You've studied really well for the test, you can ace the test, but you can't explain it to a 5-year-old. Perhaps maybe you don't have the mastery of the subject you think you do. These are all things that you should consider, or at least I considered, talking to my son. And we got his grade back. He did great. And no matter what the grade came back as, I was always going to tell him I was proud of him. And I let him know beforehand that I was proud of him. Not because I thought he was going to do well. I did, but that's besides the point. I was proud of him because I saw that he did the work. And at the end of the day, that was the one thing that actually mattered, not only to me, but I think in general. If you do the work and you keep coming back, you keep doing the work, you practice, you try, you do it again, you practice, you try, you do it again, you practice, you try, sooner or later, you're going to make a breakthrough. You're going to move forward. It's like anything else in life. Consistency will beat perfection every single day. If you stay consistent with something over a long period of time, you will figure it out. And I wanted him to understand that this is just the first test. Unfortunately, in life, you're going to have a lot of tests. Some of them you'll be able to study for, some of them will be sprung upon you, and some of them will be life tests. But I didn't want my son's orientation to tests to be something of dread or fright. I wanted to be something where, all right, I'm going to try, I'll do my best, we'll see what happens. And I think that that is such a better perspective, and it's something where I saw him become a little bit easier. Even that morning of, he came downstairs to my office and he was like, I'm really nervous. And I go, of course you're nervous. You care. You want to do well. But I told him, I go, listen, I want you to know two things. One, no matter what, I love you. I'm proud of you and I love you, and I think that you have put in the work. Whatever happens, we'll deal with. If you don't do well, oh well. If you do great, great. Either way, I'm going to be proud of you regardless. And the other thing that I wanted him to know is that that one test is not the end-all be-all. There'll be more tests. There'll be more subjects to learn. There'll be more things to grow on. And I think that if we come from that perspective of realizing that when somebody's already putting pressure on themselves, especially a 6-year-old, the best thing that you can do as a parent, at least I felt for myself, the best thing that I could do was not only be supportive, but to let him know that no matter what, he was loved, that I was proud of him. And I think that if we spent more time doing that, instead of being so critical of our kids sometimes, they probably would be happier and be a better situation. Think about how many adults would probably benefit from that kind of positive situations, positive reinforcement. Letting them know, listen, I know you did the work. It didn't work out, but you know what? You keep trying. It's one of the things that I learned, really weightlifting has probably taught me that more than anything. Because sometimes you're going to go in and you can do the work, you could try, it's not going to work out. And sometimes it does. And you just keep growing. You keep coming back and forth and back and forth. And ultimately you just have to be proud of the effort that you're doing. And know that no matter what, that's what matters. Just something I want to share, something I thought about when it came to parenting and kind of the way that we look at tests. When your kids are already feeling the pressure, as a parent, if you're going to put more pressure on them, then maybe you really need to question what you're doing. You might not agree with me, but I, for one, think that that was probably the best perspective. If you have different thoughts, write in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for joining.